What is up, my oxygen-breathing humans? This is the What is Strong video series in training without a training partner, or lifting without a training partner. I'm your host, Roman Long, and today we're going to be covering some tips and tricks for how to work out hard and heavy in the gym when your training partner might be in another country, working, running late, or you're just trying to fly solo, Han Solo. Nothing wrong with that. In this video, we'll cover some tricks, tips, and some strategies for lifting solo. We'll cover the setup, why it's important, and I'll give you some examples of some lifts in video format so that you can go out and incorporate these into your workout. Stay tuned. Training without a partner can be intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. In this video clip, I'm showing you the setup. So I count the holes and the pegs of the Rogue Power Rack setup. What I'm doing here is I'm setting up the pins for squats. Squats is one of the more difficult training regimens or workouts to perform without a lifting partner. So it's always important for safety considerations to have training pins set up. But in this video, I'll show you some examples of pin squats. So what I'm doing here is I'm testing the height of the safety pins to make sure that at the bottom of the squat, or the position that I really want to work. So let's say your sticking point is about halfway up from here. You can also set the pins there. But I'm testing it to make sure it's an appropriate height. Here I'm setting up for my first warm-up set. I'm going extremely light, maybe 10 to 20% of my 1 rep max. Just super light, as this is just a warm-up set. So I'm testing to make sure that the pins are appropriate. What I want to do is hit a depth slightly below parallel. For anyone that's training for powerlifting meet, you want to train at, I'd say at least at this depth, or right at parallel, because you want to make sure that the training modality or the training depth that you're hitting in squat is going to be minimally at least sufficient for a judge, if not slightly lower. Research shows that as long as you're working within your thresholds or what your body allows you to, hitting the deepest depths you can in the squat is going to create the greatest amount of muscle growth. Once again, work within your own limitations. If you're experiencing pain, I say set the squats just above where you might be experiencing some pain, and then do that between 4 to 6 weeks. Always consult a doctor if need be. This next set here, I'm starting to go heavy. Still not anywhere near as heavy as I would without doing pin squats. So I think this was about 60% of my projected 1RM for sets of 5. I would start, 50, 60, at most the 70% range. Especially when you're first getting into a workout, it's never prudent to go, full bore. So I definitely recommend starting off a little lower than maybe even you'd expect. Test it out and see if this is something that, 1, you have fun with, and 2, you believe would have meaningful carryover and is specific enough to your training so that it would transfer into strength gains, muscle gains. Here I wanted to show the setup for, this is going to be a pin resisted or a isometric hold on the bench press. So what I do is set the pins so that's right at chest level. If your lockout or your sticking point is slightly higher than that, then you can set it for higher wherever your sticking point might be. And then what I'm doing here is I'm forcefully pushing up against the pins as hard as I can, holding it for 10 seconds. I recommend adding this into your program for about 2 to 3 working sets. Try it once per week, and then after you've done it for about 4 weeks, try it for 2 times a week. This is possibly my favorite bench variation, especially if you're training without a lifting partner for the day. This is the pin bench press. So as you can see, the pins are set up right at chest height. So if you do end up trying to handle heavy weights for you and you fail, well, you have a nice escape route. You just squeeze under the pins. It's never prudent to train in a way where you think you're going to fail, especially without a partner, but this is a great safety mechanism here. When in doubt, pick up some good old dumbbells. Here I'm demonstrating the dumbbell bench press or flat bench press. Easily can be done without a training partner. Just be careful in the setup, especially with dumbbells. Here what I'm focusing on is really getting as deep into the bench as possible. You do put some possible strain on the shoulder joint when you do this, so make sure you start off lighter than you'd expect. The last rep here, I'm definitely cheating, so I probably should have lightened the weight here a little bit, so take it from me. Take it slow, but dumbbells are a great way to incorporate working without a partner. Here I'm performing an isometric hold on the deadlift. These safety pins can be set up anywhere along the deadlift where you find you are running into the most issues, sticking point, an area where you're losing tightness. And all I'm doing is I'm pulling up on the bar as hard as I can, trying to hold it for 10 seconds. That's all I have for you, folks. Thanks for tuning in to training or working out with a lifting partner. I hope you learned some tips, tools, and tricks in this video that you can take into your training. A couple of things, or a quick recap. We looked at some pin squats. Remember, it's important when you're training or lifting without a training partner to have pins set up or be in a situation where you can dump the bar and think about what could potentially happen if you fail during the lift. By having that careful planning ahead of time, in case you do run into that type of a situation, you've already mapped it out in your head and you have a good or healthy escape route. When it comes to the deadlift you can most certainly exercise without a training partner, but I threw in a nice and nifty little training tool that you can throw in to work on an area where you might be struggling to or losing position in your deadlift. So that was the isometric hold with the pins, and you just pull up against them as hard as possible. A lot of upper body training is totally doable without a training partner. I'd say the one that you run the most risk in doing is bench press. I always feel most confident when benching with a training partner, so if I don't have the opportunity to work out with one of my buddies or Laura, my training partner, also my just general partner, then what I'll do is I'll set up the pins, or I'll work on some dumbbell work. That way you can still get sufficient work and volume in on the targeted muscle groups, but you're not putting yourself at risk where you could potentially fail and then be pinned against the bench. That's never fun, trying to figure out how to work out of that. So to recap, if you are working out or training without a lifting partner, make sure that you're thinking and planning out the workout beforehand, just so that you are minimizing the risks that you might incur anytime you're lifting. There's potential risk, but there's a lot of awesome benefits to it as well. If you are in a situation where you're starting to bench, squat heavy, if there are people in your gym, you're working out in a commercial gym, feel free to just tag somebody and say, hey, do you mind if I could grab you for a spot? But if that's not possible, just take some of these tips, tools, and tricks into your handbag, and hopefully they help you in your training. If you like the video, please give me a like. If you have any comments, feel free to write them in the comment section below. If you're interested in my channel and want to see what I'm doing on the daily or the regular, follow my Instagram at RomanLong1031. Talk to you soon.